I have some great HOA stories for you today, and you're going to love that title story too. Here's our first one. Neighbor is bat crap crazy, pretending to be an HOA president, charging us fake fees, and saying she owns the outside entirely. Posted by Snooperoo. Hi guys, this is going to be a doozy, but we really need some help. We just moved into a duplex, and our Karen neighbor is an actual nutcase. We are friends with the landlord's daughter, and we actually have discussed how crazy this woman is, and for convenience, I will refer to her as the Karen, because she must be patient zero of this Karen epidemic. We've discussed how the Karen has got herself into some legal trouble with the past owner and the past tenant. We don't know the exact details, which we plan on trying to get, but don't know if we can get much about the past tenant, as they basically zipped off across country once they realized that Karen will not stop. But we know that the past owner sued her and that the past tenant had a restraining order against her from assault, and she got arrested shortly for not giving a rat's butt about the order and still harassed them. We thought we knew what we were getting into moving into the duplex. 2 days before the move, we Amazoned a package over. Specifically, one that just contained window films and a curtain rod, as we have no blinds or curtains of any sort in the rental, and we wanted to install them as soon as we moved in. We knew how crazy the Karen was and didn't want to put our real name in it, which I realized might have been a bad decision. And I thought it'd be funny to put a secession reference in and address it to first name of Mo, last name of Lester. It was delivered a few hours before we arrived to move, and Amazon even took a photo of the package delivered. When we arrived yesterday, it was gone. We're pretty sure that Karen full-blown stole it, but we don't have any footage, although she does have cameras set up around the property for her own self, which in itself alone is kind of invasive and creepy. We don't know if we should report her, and who we would even report this to. We really wanted to use it, and now we have no privacy whatsoever, and we're currently very low on money due to the move, so we can't just get another one. As we were moving yesterday, which was so stressful, and I was running on 2 hours of sleep, she just comes on over and practically demands that we talk to her by saying that she wanted to get to know us and quickly go over the rules of occupying our side of the duplex. My husband didn't even want to really entertain her and said, we might have a few minutes. But she said, well, this is going to take more than a few minutes, and I am the president of the HOA committee. She was immediately extremely confrontational, and it was as if we were being interrogated when she asked our names and even wanted us to show her our faces as we were wearing face masks, and we still wear face masks to avoid COVID. She started just yapping about how we only may do modifications to the rental inside, as she owns the entire property outside. No bright or patterned curtains or blinds, as it's inconsistent with the aesthetic, and even claims she has full access to our basement, which is not true. Our landlord's daughter was saying that the HOA bylaws state that the outside property is not 50-50 and nobody owns more or less than the other when it comes to the outside. We simply share it. She was just spitting out lies after lies, and even claiming that our landlord is basically nasty and created so many problems for her. Funnily enough, the problems that she stated our landlord gave her are the problems that she gave to our landlord and her daughter. She also gave us these 2 supposed legal documents she wanted to sign, like us understanding the rules of the HOA and the property and our application for renting this property. This document says we need to pay her a few fees, such as the application fee, which is non-refundable, $100 per person, pet fees, water fees, even though our landlord has been paying the water bill and she hasn't, and so on. How do we go about this? Are we legally liable for anything? Do we get a lawyer ready or what? We do not want her to continuously harass us, and we do not want to pay her for such fees. She pretends to be the president of the HOA and gives our landlord and her daughter fake legal papers that state they need to pay her, so we are expecting that she will hand some over to us as well. We really do not want to go through all the fighting her with it not resulting to anything, and her just harassing us our entire lease. Our landlord's daughter said that she's basically been in hiding to avoid the process server that has been trying to serve her, So she was surprised that she came out of her cave to talk to us. We are wondering if there's anything we can do to stop her in the future from giving us legal documents that have fake fees and rules, and how to tell her that we can actually use the lawn in the backyard. We already have a recording of the entire conversation we had yesterday for future reference should we proceed anything legal with her ourselves. We already have the contact info of the previous owner who previously sued her, and we will ask what the full case against her is of our landlord and her daughter. We just want to know what to do on our end, as we are the one facing her ugly head. Now there's an update in the comments. One poster asked OP, "I would not accept any paperwork from her and would not speak to her either. Politely but firmly refuse and state, as renters, we have no legal relationship with you, only with our landlord. You must direct any questions to the landlord, and all communications must go through our landlord. An HOA is for owners only. We are not owners." And OP says, "Thanks so much for this. We honestly feel like a deer in headlights being in this situation, but your comment has calmed us down a lot." New neighbors are, admittedly, very annoying, but one of the HOA board members is asking me to join her in taking pictures of their violations so they can be fined. I'm feeling very conflicted. Posted by DreamBean94. I thought you kind, like-minded folks would be able to help me out with this situation. We live in a townhouse community with HOA. There are about 4 to 5 townhouses per cluster, maybe 10 to 12 clusters, so it's not a huge neighborhood. Very quiet. It's the biggest reason why we moved here. The HOA is okay. I mean, I don't love having an HOA, but ours isn't as bad as some of the horror stories that I've read. They're not too strict and crazy, and we haven't had any huge issues with them. One of the board members lives 2 doors down. She'll call in parking violations and such, so homeowners get reminder letters, which is slightly annoying, but she's not crazy vindictive and doesn't start drama. We had new neighbors move in right next to us a couple weeks ago, and truthfully, they are so annoying. I can't believe that I'm the one saying this. Look, here's what's been going on. They have 2 little dogs who they've been letting run around without a leash in our shared backyard area. We all have back decks and a large lawn that's shared and owned by the HOA. I don't hate dogs, but I also don't like random dogs that I don't know running up to me anywhere, let alone on my deck when I'm just trying to chill. They chain smoke out back to the point where we can't open any of our back windows or doors because the smoke comes right inside. We also can't sit out on our own deck without breathing in their cloud of smoke. This issue is particularly conflicting because it is their deck, but at the same time, now their smoke is coming over to our deck and into our house. I'm trying to figure out a way to mitigate this, but haven't come up with the solution yet. We have a high-capacity HEPA air purifier that will run by the back door, but it's not enough to soak up all the smoke as it wafts in. They've been throwing their cigarette butts out onto the lawn. This drives me the most crazy. It's so gross. Like, why do people do this? They're loud and boisterous at all hours. The homeowner in particular is almost always out back on the phone, yelling loudly at whoever he's talking to. It could be 7 a.m. or 1 a.m. I mean, this doesn't bother me too much during the day, but our bedroom faces the back, and when he's out there being loud at night, it literally sounds like he's inside our bedroom with us. Now, for parking, each unit gets a 1-car garage and 1 outside parking space. There are also clusters of visitor parking around the neighborhood. All spots are labeled with a house number or V for visitor. The new neighbor's guests keep parking in private spots and or in front of the garages, blocking people in. It's not a huge inconvenience if I have to park in a visitor spot, but sometimes there aren't any available and I'll have to park all the way down in this grassy area on the other side of the hood and walk back, which sucks if it's hot as heck out or late at night. Apparently, they also did this to our elderly neighbor, and that bothers me because she really can't be walking a quarter mile and more when it's 95 degrees outside. My fiance and I have been talking about it since they moved in and are trying to figure out how best to approach. This issue is further complicated by the fact that they seem to be very new to the US, so they may have just moved here. I'm guessing that a cultural difference is at play here as well. We wouldn't want to offend them or make them feel unwelcome because of their culture, so we haven't spoken to them yet, and we're just trying to gauge if they're just adjusting or learning the ins and outs of community living in our neighborhood, or if all of this is going to be a long-term issue. So the board member lady approached me yesterday to let me know that she's already fed up with them and has started calling them in for violations. She said that she had already tried talking to them directly, but they were rude to her and dismissed her and haven't stopped with the cigarette butts and parking issues. Which is discouraging because we were starting to lean towards speaking directly with them as well, but now I'm wondering if it's even worth it if they don't give a crap. Board member gave me her number and asked me to start sending over pictures of any violations that I notice with them. I said, okay, sure, and was thinking, I probably won't partake in this kind of stuff. But then, again that day, the new neighbors had guests over who parked my fiance into the garage. I thought about sending the board member a picture like she asked, but ultimately decided against it this time. So now, I don't know what to do. Do we try talking directly with them first? And if so, what do we even say? We've admittedly never had to have one of these discussions with a neighbor before. Or do I start sending over the pictures? Or would it be best just to stay out of it completely? SOS, I don't want to be a crazy HOA person, but these neighbors are bothering me. Update. So, right after I posted this, the board member rang the doorbell and I went out and talked to her for a bit. She told me that she called the HOA property manager and asked them to address this issue today because she's fed up. Apparently, they've also not been picking up their dog poop on top of everything else. So I mentioned that my fiance and I are thinking about, just casually having a conversation with them about our concerns. But she said not to, that the HOA told her not to talk to them directly, which is a bit odd in my opinion. I'm not sure if they told her like that because they think that she's going to be a bit overboard, or maybe they just want her to leave them alone, or because they're actually concerned for her safety. They said it was a safety thing. Oh, and I also got more deets about the neighbors. They're not actually the homeowners. The homeowners bought the house and immediately rented it out. So they're tenants and the guests are staying here for the entire summer. Update 2. So this happened tonight. They sped around the corner and drove through the lawn to drop some stuff off at their deck. We had 2 kids over at the time, and if they were outside, they very well might have been run over today. OP also says, I was wondering about this homeowner and tenant HOA dynamic. The board member told me that the homeowners can and will be held responsible for their tenants' behavior. And I guess that, if the tenants keep acting up and their homeowner keeps getting fined, eventually the tenants will be kicked out? But I wonder how long it will take for this whole thing to play out. Weeks? Months? Will they leave willingly or will they need to be evicted? Should be interesting. That's a good idea with a box fan. We have a big box fan that we could put out there and it would probably help direct the smoke the other way. But then I'd feel a little bad because our elderly neighbor lives on the other side of them. The more I think about the parking thing, the more it starts to bother me. I mean, they must not care and have some sense of entitlement because they're repeatedly parking people in. Neighbors in a homeowners association have issues that I don't follow the HOA rules, alternate chaos 5150 post, so the neighbors called me a butt today. I bought a house 5 years ago that a real estate company built on speculation. Mine was the first house in a planned subdivision that they were going to build one house at a time, or as people bought the individual tracts of land. The area kind of hit a boom period, and the other surrounding houses went up quick. In my contract to purchase my home, there was no homeowners association, and because I was here first, I don't have to join any if the other neighbors decide to create. I'm grandfathered in, is what it says in my contract. They all seem to forget this though, and they continually try to give me HOA fines for breaking the rules of the HOA. This has ranged from days that I have things delivered to my home, like Amazon deliveries on Sundays, to when I cut my grass, to me having vehicles parked in my yard and they aren't happy that I own an extra tract of land because I bought 2 to have a bigger yard so that I could build a shooting range. I live in the South, this is not that uncommon. The recent event though that led them to call me a butt is that they came over to ask me to remove the eyesore in front of my garage. Now, my home faces the road. not anyone else's house, so they don't stare at my garage, but apparently they still don't like it. I run a small hobby business of doing woodworking projects, and I have a shelf outside my garage door full of various pieces of treated lumber that I may use one day. It's not the neatest and the cleanest area, but it's not a disheveled mess either. So I told them if they lightened up and just left me alone about all the other stuff, I'd consider moving my woodpile if it bothered them so much. They proceeded to tell me that I needed to address all the HOA issues and take care of the woodpile, along with stopping any deliveries on Sundays and getting my other truck out of my yard. They handed me what basically amounts to a ticket, and I trashed it and I told them to get the heck off my property. They called me a butt for my unreasonable behavior and told me they'd be back. I've been in contact with a real estate attorney about the deed and whether or not they can still attempt to legally force anything. Also, I've contacted one on creating a cease and desist. I do have cameras on my property. The vehicle in the yard is just one, and it's not an abandoned wreck. It's a fairly new truck that I use mostly on weekends. It sits there so I can get my other vehicles out easier. I do move it when I mow, so it's just sitting there beside my driveway. Do you agree with this comment? Not the butt. Is there any way to get a sort of restraining order on the HOA? Not the people per se, the entity itself. Or a cease and desist maybe? I don't know, but I'd totally do that if I were me. Yeah, I mean, if you're not in it and you're grandfathered in, that's what your legal contract says. Call the HOA because my yard is devaluing your house? All right, I'll have it cleaned by the inspection date, posted by Jumbo Face. This is a story of my mother's. She has always been incredibly hard-headed, but this sticks out a lot from my teenage years. Once a year, she always had us pull everything out of the garage. There's lots of boxes. My mom has a concerning amount of possessions, so we could go through it and clean and reorganize. This particular year, the couple who owned the house across the street from us, flippers, were in the process of selling their house. Unhappy with my mother's unsightly driveway covered in boxes soiling their good image, they made a call to the HOA. By the time my mother received the letter, the mess had been put away, but they decided to get her on a few other complaints, such as the bikes against the side of the house and the patchy gravel. She had 2 weeks to have everything up to standards. Petty and easily frustrated, my mother knew immediately who called, since the couple had come over and told her flat out with their renovations they were selling that house for way more than any other house in this neighborhood, and would appreciate if she respected that by keeping her property on par. For the next 2 weeks, every box from that garage was in our driveway. The couch and the living room TV came next. This was early summer, so it was perfect weather to sit in your yard in your short shorts and sports bra. My mom made sure to wave and smile every time they brought someone over for a showing. The final step came at the end of that 2 weeks though. After the yard had been cleaned up and cleared by the HOA, my mom went to the local Walmart and bought a for sale sign. She wrote about 1/4 of their ridiculous asking price on it and finished off with a big "sold" written across the front and stuck it out in our yard. No clue what they ended up selling their house for, but it sat empty for a while, so I'd assume it was below offer. Old boss steals owed money through mandatory retirement payments and tells me if I don't like it to take it up with the authorities, so I did. Posted by My Nuts Are Musical. Here we go. A few years back now, I worked for a smallish locally owned company owned by 2 friends. The company was going strong when I started, but after 10 years there, the place was going downhill fast. One day, we discovered the bosses had not been making superannuation payments to us, which my country's required retirement fund that employees and employers are required to pay into, for over 2 years, owing tens of thousands over all the employees. This was the final straw for me, and I gave them 2 weeks' notice. As I was basically the last manager there, most of the employees also quit with me, and this really ticked off the owners who thought that I was somehow overreacting. I made them ensure that they would pay me what I was owed, or I would get the tax agency involved. A few weeks later, I get an email detailing repayments significantly less than what was owed. When I emailed back, they told me that they had taken hours I owed in time in lieu out of what was owed in superannuation, and if I had a problem with that, they would have no issue speaking with the authorities about the hours that I stole from them. This is, of course, highly illegal. For one, we had no contract laying out that I would have to repay owed hours. Secondly, they most definitely cannot take that money from my superannuation repayments. I decided not to reply, save the email, and move straight onto the tax agency, which they look after superannuation affairs. This took a very long time, as the process is very slow, but after about a year and several different tax representatives, I one day got a call out of the blue from one of the owners. This was a very angry, threatening call asking why I had reported them to the tax agency and why I was determined to ruin their lives. I told him exactly why I did it and that he reaped what he sowed. A few days later, I get an email from the tax agency telling me that they will be repaying all that was owed, plus interest accrued over the now 3+ years that they didn't pay. They would have also been put on a blacklist of employers had they not sold the business a few months after we left. For more background, after I quit, I took 2 weeks off to be alone with my thoughts and relax for a bit before accepting one of the many job offers that I received once my departure had been made public in our industry. I walked away with a higher pay, more secure job, and the position every company in the industry was fighting for at the time, as the company I chose won the contract and they gave the position to me. HOA president breaks in, so we take the HOA board down. Here's how. Click the video on your screen. You don't want to miss a fallout of this one, and I'll see you there.